Yo, 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 what's up, party people? Welcome to another episode of Thrive and Dive. Thriving in life by diving into deeper conversations. This show exists to help you thrive, and one of the ways we do that is by jumping into the Word of God. You ready to jump back into our Book of John study, Emma?
Oh, yeah. John chapter 7 coming up.
Let's go. You heard it here first, folks. John chapter 7. We are jumping into verses 1 through 13. If you were with us in our previous passage, we finished chapter 6, and it was a long section of scripture. We unpacked Jesus' first I am statement, being I am the
bread of life.
The bread of life. I forget to use the soundboard on our Book of John study. So bread of life. And this next story, based on the Bible Knowledge Commentary, this story happened 6 months after the events of the I am the bread of life. So some time has passed, and we are going to jump in with that context in mind. So Emma, do you want to read the 13 verses for us today?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it, that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. The Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, "Where is he?" There was much muttering about him among the people. While some said, "He is a good man," others said, "No, he is leading the people astray." Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him.
Excellent. So pause there in the narrative story. And Emma, do you want to jump in by sharing any observations you see from this text today?
Yeah. So the first question I had when I was first glancing over it about what was the significance about Judea? Why would he specifically not want to go about in Judea, but was fine to be where he was before? And it's because a lot of the religious leaders were there. So back in Galilee, the religious leaders were not really there. It was just the other Jews that were witnessing what was going on.
The country
right?
bumpkins, not the high-profile people.
Right.
Nothing wrong with a good country bumpkin, just to be clear.
Yes. And then they talk about the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of the Tabernacle, which is a week-long celebration that happens in September or October, depending on, I guess, the calendar.
Love it. Yeah, Great. Way to break down that context. So he's been ministering in Galilee for some time now, and Jesus' half-brothers, half being that they were not born of God like Jesus was. They were born of Joseph, Jesus' earthly father. We're like, "All right, Mr. Hotshot, Jesus over here in, Galilee, you're big time. But if you're really as big time as people say you are, how about you show yourself in Judea, where all the high profile people are, where Jerusalem is, the most important city for Israel, and really make yourself known." And this leads to a point that I gathered from this text, is that Jesus' brothers thought that he should show himself to the world if he was truly the Messiah. So it says in this text that they did not believe he was the Messiah, which, to be fair, if one of my brothers claimed to be God Almighty, the bread of life, I might be a little skeptical as well. But unfortunately, they just, even those closest to Jesus they don't get a pass and automatically become believers all of a sudden. Thankfully, if you know the story of the scriptures, James, one of his brothers, great name, by the way, he does come to faith later in life, spoiler alert, and he actually becomes one of the pillars of the church in the book of Acts, specifically in Jerusalem. So my boy James, your time will come, but for now he's in utter disbelief.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
In the verse 4, when he was talking, "For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly," I think that's where you were going, right?
Yeah, that's what the
Yeah.
brothers were saying. If you
Yeah.
are who you say you are, let's stop doing these secretive things. Let's get out in the open and draw some crowds up in Judea.
Yeah. So, and I was just reading, I'm doing like a 10 women in the Bible with my women's Bible study. And the person that we're reading about this week is Sapphira. I don't know how to say her name.
Like Moses' wife,
No,
Oh.
Ananias.
Ananias and Sapphira.
Yeah,
Oh,
Sapphira.
she's bad.
in Acts 5. Well, yeah. But
Yeah, she dies.
Well, they both die because they were wanting the glory for themselves. Like they had this mindset that, oh, well, we should do work so that we're known, like, and that we receive the glory, and like we want to be known for doing our good works.
Sure.
And then they die. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I thought of when I read that verse.
Yeah, thankfully, they were made an example of, and people no longer after the fact were dying in such a fashion, because if everyone were to be struck down, if they were trying to puff themselves up and lie to God,
Yeah.
I think there would be a pretty big grave,
Yes.
a mass grave of believers, which is sad to say.
Definitely.
But yeah, this leads into the quote that I observed from the Bible Knowledge Commentary. It says, Jesus' brothers advised him to display himself in a powerful, brilliant way. Show yourself to the world. But God's way was a public display on a cross of humiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So we, as carnal human beings, sometimes think that, God must be extravagant beyond measure, which he is, right? He created, the galaxies with the sound of his voice. That's pretty brilliant and extraordinary. But when he works on earth, it's not always the biggest, brightest, and most flashy thing. Suffering on the cross and complete humiliation is probably not what the Jewish leaders had on their bingo card for their Messiah.
Yeah. They were expecting someone to like make themselves known publicly and come in and like declare that they were the Messiah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jesus doesn't always come the way that we might anticipate back then, and then also presently in our lives as well.
Yeah.
Which leads to an application question I have, if you want to answer it, or just, to the audience, posing it maybe a more rhetorical question. But the question is, how often do we tie the move of God only to the stroke of brilliance? Like, if it ain't flashy, if there isn't huge, large revival numbers, then probably not God. When in fact, how often does God move in humble, meek ways in churches that you've probably never even heard of, right?
Yeah. I think we were listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how God has so much at work that we have no idea about, and we're probably only aware of like 2 things, like a lot of it is behind the scenes. And also going into verse 6, they were talking, 6, that my time has not yet come. So sometimes something may be in God's will, but it's just not yet,
Yeah,
just,
it's not his timing for the seed to be watered and to sprout. Yeah. So I think what you're saying, at best, God is working multitudes of things happening, and at best we can maybe notice 2 if we're lucky of the things God is doing. And this is not to be like a false dichotomy where God only moves in the meek and mild and never works in the extravagant. I think of the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville. Shout out to Joby Martin's church. Well, the church that Joby Martin goes to. My sister and brother-in-law go to that church, and that's how he refers. I think I've said this before on the podcast. But that church baptized over, I think, 2,000 people the other weekend.
Wow.
Like, that's a flashy, extraordinary move of God, right? And we celebrate that. So it's not that God doesn't flex his muscles from time to time. It's just that I don't think we should always be expectant that that's how he's going to work, right? If you do an altar call and only 1.5 people come up, I don't know how you get to half. That's still super awesome. And we rejoice over the 99 and we rejoice over the 1.
Yeah.
So, and actually with that testimony from the Church of 1122, I was listening to Joby Martin, Ruslan, one of our favorite YouTubers, interviewed him the other day. And he was talking about, God has anointed their church, the Church of 1122, with so much favor right now. But then he talked about the testimony of a small church up, I forget what state, but more eastern northern. And he said, you probably never heard of this church. And Ruslan was like, nope, never heard of that church. But let me tell you, that church raised a woman named Gretchen, who later became my wife. And if it wasn't for Gretchen, my wife, Church of 1122 never would have happened. Because he shared he was about to give up on this pursuit. But Gretchen, Joby's wife, said, let's just give it one more chance. And as a result, Church of 1122 is a huge movement, a huge work of the Lord. So again, that church, that small church that raised Gretchen, which I believe was her grandpa that was the pastor of the church. Faithful, never heard of it. Small church, but mighty eternal impact. So I think that's just for us to consider. Yeah, I have another observation. But what are some other thoughts about these 13 verses?
In verse 7, the world cannot hate you. Again, I forget what podcast we were listening to in the car when we were driving back home.
It was the Live Free podcast with Josh Howerton and Lake Point Church. Shout out to you guys if you ever stumble across our content. We are part of Live Free Nation. But anyway, proceed.
Yeah, it was a good podcast, but they talked about a lot of stuff. But someone had said that Satan is the god of this world. Oh, that kind of came to mind when the world cannot hate us because the world is always trying to get us to do worldly things, even though we're called to live set apart.
Yeah, the devil's out there to steal, kill, and destroy. And if he can't destroy us, he'll try to conform us to his patterns. There's 3 enemies that are constantly at work against the believer. There's the world and the culture of the world. There's the flesh, the sinfulness inside of us. And then there's the devil and his legion of demons that are out to get us. And it was such an interesting statement, right? Because Jesus is like, I can't go to Jerusalem. They'll kill me. They won't kill you though, right? Says verse 7, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about that its works are evil, right? Like you're in the good graces of the world. So the Jewish leaders aren't out to get you. You're part of the agenda. You're part of the cultural values of this system, which led to the principle that just really, I don't know, it really motivated me, convicted me, and grieved me all at the same time. But says the principle I got was this. The world is not dangerous to those who are a part of it. Jesus is hated because he testifies to the world that its works are evil. The world hates Jesus because he's not part of the agenda, the values, the culture that it's trying to establish. And a quote from the Bible Knowledge Commentary says, the world was not dangerous to the brothers of Jesus because they were part of it. But the world hated Jesus because he is not of it. He has come into it as light and pointed out its sin and rebellion against the Father. The world has its religions, its programs, its plans, its values, but Christ witnessed that. It is all evil. But Christ witnessed that it's all evil. And I think sometimes people see Jesus as a lovey-dovey, accepting and not affirming of all cultural things, which Jesus is love, but he's also truth. And according to a text like this, he said the works of this world are evil. And that rubs a lot of people wrong. And I think sometimes people want to contrast the Apostle Paul with Jesus, because the Apostle Paul was very firm on his teaching on holiness and Christian values and against sexual sin. And people are like, well, Jesus didn't say anything like that. A verse like this indicates that Jesus was not for the values of this world, celebrating sexual immorality, celebrating legalism, celebrating pride, celebrating self-promotion. And that's why the world hated him. Not only Jewish leaders, but also the world and its values hated him. And they ultimately conspired with the leaders of the Jews to put him on the cross. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. And also convicting too of like, are we having those same values? Like it's so easy to get caught up with like the culture around us. And are we around those who are lifting us up and guiding us more towards Christ?
Yeah, absolutely. And I get it. There's a real battle going on. And sometimes I'm timid and scared and I don't want to speak up for the truths that Jesus proclaimed from the rooftops. But as ambassadors of Christ, agents of reconciliations, imitators of Christ, we need to not be afraid of hate from the world. Obviously, we don't become intentionally obnoxious just to annoy the heck out of people to where they hate you because you're just obnoxious. But if you are speaking the truth, there's going to be friction. There's going to be pushback. And if you're in a season of life where you're not getting any friction or pushback, maybe you aren't being bold enough in your faith and values. And that's a challenge for me as well.
Mhm.
When's the last time I was bold enough about my faith to where I experienced pushback from the world, right?
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, right, is your life portraying the values of Jesus in such a way where the enemy is disgusted by your life
Mm.
and wants to take you down? I think that's a modern application we can pull from this. And Jesus says it to his disciples. They hated me. Don't be shocked if they hate you too, right?
Yeah.
You're not above the leader, right? So if any way we twist the teachings of Jesus to where the world loves us, there's something wrong with your theology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. So, I mean, like Jesus said to his disciples or to his brothers, this is not my time. And Jesus says that multiple times in the Gospels because he has a sovereign will in mind. He knows crucifixion is coming, but he didn't want to, speed up the process too fast. He needs to accomplish all the works of the Father. And some of those things where, we haven't got to all 7 signs and all 7 I am statements. So we know there's got to be more before Jesus is crucified. So, so Jesus tells his brothers that he's not going to go with them because of the publicity. And then he goes more covertly, Agent Jesus,
in secret.
Going in secret. And then as we see, as this passage closes, and we'll pick it back up in our next episode, there is a stir amongst the people. They were anticipating Jesus being there, but they're asking, where is he? And then some say, he's a good man. And some say, no, he's leading the people astray. Yet for the fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly about Jesus. And when it says fear of the Jews, they're referring to specifically the Pharisees, the Sadducees, because they're all Jews at this festival. Some people don't know what to think of Jesus, and Jesus is about to clear up some things in our next episode. So, we'll go ahead and pause this study. Hope you guys enjoyed this study, and hope you come back for our next episode as we continue to pick up chapter 7 of the book of John. And if you have any thoughts that were encouraging to you from this study, love to see those in the chat if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, because those are the only 2 places you can listen. So drop the comments that what stood out to you? What were you encouraged by? What's the point you want to add on? What's the pushback maybe to the observations we made? We'd love to engage with you in that way. So be sure to do so. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to smash that like button. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, that would mean a lot to us. So, but until then, this is Thrive and Dive, thriving in life by diving into deeper conversations. We'll see you at the next episode.